I'll make a little breakfast here. Had to take my car over to the auto shop. Brakes going. The brakes are gone. I guess one of the lines. I guess one of the lines is broke or something. Anyways, Tom over there, Tom's Auto, off of 32nd MacArthur here in Oklahoma City. He said something about him. Cost. My roommate has been a blessing to me. Said he's gonna help me. So, uh, cutting these apples up. I got some onions and red potatoes. We in the oil. Throw some of these eggs on there here in a minute. I had a had to explain to him. Well, he wanted me to write my number down. Wrote my number down, and he knew what car it was. And I just handed him my keys, and he forgot. He forgot that I just handed him my keys. He was, I guess, kind of chasing me down as I went and got my neighbor to give me a ride. And anyways, I said, "Yeah, I think you put them in your pocket." And then he opened his hand up, and there were my keys. I guess he was already feeling the impact this morning of all that he had to do. So, yeah, that was kind of funny. But go grab some of these eggs. Oh, I could not begin to pronounce that name. Wow, that is a neat name. Faj, Faji Baba Akhilesh. Faji Baba Akhilesh. I don't know if that's right, but I rinsed some of the poo off these old eggs. Not sure if y'all know, but if you get fresh eggs or you got chickens, them eggs, you can keep them for almost a month. In some cases, up to a month. But you put them, just put them on the shelf, man, or up in the window like I do, and they stay good for about a month. And you can always rinse the eggs off, but you have to put them in the refrigerator. If you're not aware of that, fresh eggs, you don't uh, you don't wash the poo off of them. It's actually whatever's in the poo that keeps the eggs fresh for as long as they stay fresh for. So um, just a note in case you were unaware of that. Gotta stir these apples and potatoes and onions up a little bit. I had a conversation the other day with somebody, and I guess I'm one of those people that some folks feel like, well, you don't get to the point quick enough. You just keep explaining and keep explaining. And so a lot of times I feel like if I'm explaining something to somebody and you have any questions, I might answer all of your questions thinking that we're presuppositionalists by nature. So I'm thinking if I explain this in a way to where you can grab what I'm, you know, whatever it is I'm explaining, um, then it'll all just make sense and it'll minimize questions. But a lot of times when you're having conversations with people, as you're speaking to those people, they're interjecting, and there's not this wait, and then they ask a question that you're probably going to answer if they would just give you more than 10 words in a 16-word sentence. Like if I could get to a period, you might actually hear the answer to that question. But because you keep interjecting and keep interjecting and keep interjecting, it makes this conversation choppy. And then when not only is a person interjecting with questions or something, they're also interjecting with just something off the fly in comparison, or trying to make some humorous joke, or but the point is they're constantly interrupting. And because they're constantly interrupting and they're wanting you to get to the point because you talk too much, who's actually doing all the talking? Well, it has to be the person that's doing the interrupting, because the person that's interrupting hasn't stopped talking. You're trying to get to a period in a sentence, and bam, you get hit with something, and then they rattle on, rattle on, rattle on, rattle on. That that's that's not a conversation. Number one. Number two, um, the the person might be able to get to the point quicker if the person interrupting wasn't doing all of the talking. And uh, I'm sure we can all be terrible at that at times when it comes to that. But some people are just a little more. They just do it a little more than others, man. That's all I can say. And but they're usually the ones that are wanting wanting others to get to the point. Well, let me get to the point. Allow me permission under your sovereign universal authority to get to a period before you interrupt me with a question and or something that compares and or your humor. Allow me to get to that point in the conversation instead of interrupting you, because really the only one who's doing too much talking and not getting to the point is the person interrupting constantly. Um, I don't know. I know that when uh, when Jacoby was about 3 or 4, I used to explain it to him the same way my mama used to explain it to me. Is you know, um, when I would be watching a TV show or something, um, when I was a kid, I would be like, well, what about, why they do that? Or why are they going to do this? And now what are they going to do? And my mom would say, well, if you'll just watch the show, if you watch the program may answer that question for you. And so that was always the kind of the way I framed it up, you know, when my son, at 3, I mean, they can't really help interrupting and asking questions. That's just what they do. But I would explain to them, well, if you'll let me finish, I might actually answer your question and more questions, but you have to let me finish. And he's a pretty good listener. Um, I know there are times where I can remember Jacoby um, uh, wanting something, and it was a no to the it was a no, just a hard no, and just keep saying my name over and over again, like I was going to give in to whatever it was that he was, trying to get me to give into. And he would, Dad, and I'd say Jacoby, Dad. I'd say Jacoby, and then he'd go, what? I'd go, oh, I'm just saying your name. Then he just, again later on, he'd be trying to dad me to get me to give in to whatever he wanted me to give into. So I'd just say Jacoby, and then he would say Dad, and, and then we would just go back and forth until finally he realized that um, I'm just not giving in, and in the future he would be it would make the process of his acknowledging that it's not going to be a yes, and so the dad started to be something more minimal, and so anyways, I'm not saying that's for every kid, but a lot of times in my experience, I've actually seen it retard the fuss. No two people are alike. So yeah, man, this live might have got a little choppy there for a second. I know my son, he used to mispronounce words all the time, and he was learning how to read, really learning how to pay attention more than anything. When it comes to reading, it was just he was young, uh, but I would uh, try to get him to say certain words. I think I think R's and L's have always been a challenge for most of us, at least in the English. Uh, and if I had spelt a word for him and trying to help him see the difference between how an L is pronounced and a W is pronounced, and then later on he start mispronouncing that word that actually has an L in it or a W, and then I'd be like, I bet you can't spell it, and then he he just kind of knew that he was getting ready to be helped in how to say the word um, the right way, and it come with its challenges, but it's a lot of fun. This is my little compost bin, the indoor compost bin. What I do is I put all my trash in there. Of course, I break those eggs up here in a little bit, or the eggshells. But all my chickens, I just throw it out there in the compost pile and then they eat it. You can minimize a lot of trash, that has to go out. All these landfills we have uh, by tons. If you just got 3 chickens in your yard, then you can make you a little scrap bowl or a little compost bowl like that, and throw it out in the yard. If your neighbor's got chickens, they don't mind. Try to make something happen there too. But like I said, it's the landfills keep some of that stuff out of there. We got Hilarious Heaven Production. All right. So, hey, dude, love from USA. Yeah, I'm right in the middle of the USA, man, Oklahoma. He has a request. Said hi. Anyways, I was gonna show you guys what I got going on. Apples. There's onion. There's red potatoes. Some fresh eggs, and then some little bit of cheese on there. That's it. That's what I got, man. Well, what's your request? What is your request? I'm from Arizona. Very cool. I had a buddy who was from out there in Arizona. Well, he lived in Phoenix, I guess, for a long time, but he was originally from Oakland, California. But yeah, I live in a little suburb of Oklahoma City, um, called Bethany. It's one of the original um, homestead locations in Oklahoma when people originally started homesteading. So I know I had a, a really good um, few weeks chopping it up with somebody real tough. And man, I tell you what, it was probably the best. I don't know what you want to call it since it's nothing anymore. But friendship, relationship, it was, I don't know, like just the backgrounds that she and I had, they were very, very similar. And there was just a level of understanding and a seemingly like a want to understand. I think a lot of times the people that have like share some of the same backgrounds, and we'll just call it traumas, the traumas that come with your past. Sometimes there's like this, it's a thing called trauma bonding. And I don't think she and I did that. Um, in fact, I think the opposite. It was more of a wanting to just um, communicate with an understanding and not trying to, you know, have done this, and that's how they handled it. And then they go on in this thing, and it's almost like saying, "Yeah, man, when I was at that steak place, I ate the whole steak, all 32 ounces of it, man, and I ate the." And they're like, "Yeah, man, I was there one time, and I ate four." They didn't eat four. There's a lot of steak, but it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? Like it was cool. You know what I'm saying? It was cool. Um, I appreciated it. I appreciated our our paths crossing. They just kind of ghosted me though. This just wasn't nothing. Uh, no explanation. No, it was what I did find. So insofar as certain parts of our relationship, if there was something that was um, intimate, and there was a mention of whatever, um, then she would say, "Well, you have to tell me. I don't know unless you tell me." I was like, "Yeah, but I just thought it was. I mean, you're doing your whole thug thizzle, and I'm okay with that. It's not all about me." And but when it come to other things that weren't, you know, as intimate, if I had said something, then it goes into sort of this immediate response that has a direct implication. Hey, don't do that. When what is being said that I'm doing, I'm not actually doing. I'm doing something uh, actually not the same as what I'm being accused of. Instead of, like in the more intimate moments, hey, why don't you try that? Because I would have to respond the same way. Well, I don't know unless you tell me, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But it's not. It wasn't there unless it was in more of an intimate um, setting. And so, uh, anyways, but no, I'm not. I wouldn't go so far as to say heartbroken. I think at first I was a little confused, and I still don't have any answer. I still haven't, like I said, I was just ghosted. So I don't know. I'm just moving forward. I get a chance to look forward. So, you know, I'm just excited to see what God's going to do next. You know what I mean? See what God does next in my life. And I just look at previous relationships. And of course, I've only been, I haven't had but a handful of relationships. And they were all, excuse me, there was only one that lasted a long time and it wasn't good. Yeah. I'm going to go out here today and do a little more on that chicken coop. And they're pretty well protected right now. A friend of mine is supposed to give me some more sheet metal for the roof, um, so I can finish the roof out. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I know it's probably busy all week, but hopefully this weekend we might be able to get it over here. Um, and also have that fire pit, out there. Use as much. I don't have very much concrete, so got to use as much as I can and get it built up as much as I can, and then work on getting some more But that's what my day is going to look like. I guess there might be some rain, but I don't know if it's actually going to. I don't think we're supposed to get any until early in the morning, but that could change. This is Oklahoma. Well, that was breakfast. I'll save the other half for lunch. Get a little water and caffeine in my system. Getting ready to have to stop all that. The doctor's getting ready to do surgery on my neck, and he's, putting emphasis on you can't smoke, you can't drink, you can't chew, you can't date girls that do. So, that's not a problem. I can quit. I can quit all that. I can quit all that. I like it, but it's not something I have to do. So it's already keeping some of my little change in my pocket. It's gonna be 6 weeks for my, I guess, the heal time. It's gonna take about 6 weeks. So anything you put in your body that could compromise, the bone, the healing, I want to stay away from it. Oh yeah, we're just gonna cover that up. Clean up my mess here. Yeah. I got like this weird limp this morning. I know it's just because it's early in the morning. Yesterday and today, my right hand, has had some really bad arthritic pain in it. Basically from my center of my lower back into my hip and then down my leg. I put my back brace on before I go out there and yard, mess with the birds. Man, I watched a skit. I watched a skit one time where I was I was slowly watching a decision, um, an agreement, that was made for someone to come over and hang out, and then I was watching. Really, it was some of the conversation that was being had that was like, that's your position, this is my position, and I was okay with it. I wasn't offended, 'cause, but I guess they were kind of offended. It was one of those things where we were talking about Bible and politics or something. Anyways, then one of their friends just all of a sudden shows up, and they've got some dire emergency issue stuff, and like, man, we're gonna have to reschedule. Uh, like, my response to that was, yeah, I kind of saw that coming. Um, I say, just people screaming the loudest about being tolerant are the most intolerant people. And then I also tell folks that, um, that are like that, trying to say, well, you can't think like this, you can't think like that, and you have to know this, and you have to know that, and I just can't see how a person can be this type of, you know, you're talking conservatives and liberals or something, you know what I mean? It, we just need to be more accepting and point out that it's a little intolerant, that they're being intolerant, and that you're not going to tolerate their intolerance. You're going to be intolerant of their intolerance. Yeah, that usually that usually doesn't go over very well. But man, I think the thing is we just hope that hopefully there's a point in a person's life where some of those conversations like that have an impact, where they're aware of um, you know what they're doing when they express their intolerance, because that's what a person's doing when they're expressing. um, People need to be more, what's basically what you're saying is that people need to be more need to be more tolerant, so therefore you're intolerant of people's intolerance. You're the very thing that you're making a claim at is the very thing that you're telling another person. um, you're trying to correct somebody else on what they're not tolerating. So you have to be intolerant in order to tell someone. Um, yeah, you have to be intolerant in order to tell somebody to be tolerant, because you're basically intolerant of their intolerance. I don't know that it's the same, like I've used this example before when it comes to judging. Well, you shouldn't judge. Well, I appreciate the judgment statement. Thank you for your judgment. And usually people are like, "Oh, I see what you did." No, that's not what I did. All I did is what I did was point out what you did. You made a judgment, and your judgment was that people shouldn't judge. I'm sorry, I didn't see you had another comment down there. Do you have a family? I used to. I don't have a family anymore. I mean, not like a wife and children and stuff like that. I did once. I oh Oh, that was the front door. That was the washing machine kicking open. Um, yeah, no, I had a family. I was married to someone who ended up getting into other men and drugs and alcohol and things like that. According to her mother's estimation, it was my fault. I didn't use drugs. I like to drink beer on the weekends and drink beer with dinner and stuff like that. But um, I wasn't like falling around kind of drunk. Like I just drank beer. It wasn't a drunk alcoholic type of thing. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'd wait all week, just hang out, barbecue, neighbors on the weekends, kind of thing. So um, I guess I was just making merry. I wasn't a drunkard, but she had meth and opiates and opioids, and um, she had a lot of different stuff. She thought I was going to take my son and um, a divorce, which I had no intentions on taking my son from her. But I ended up going to prison for a crime I did not commit. And when men go to prison in Oklahoma, the DHS wants to take the nuclear family away. Um, yeah, it's okay if you're not an American. Um, but yeah, the DHS, Department of Human Services, will take your parental rights away if you're a man um, in America and you're in prison. And the reason why they do that is because um, when people go to prison, um, especially males, um, and they don't have constant communication, even in the form of writ, with their children, then those children have the ones that don't have constant communication um, are 75% of them are going to end up in prison. And so basically the cattle chute just stays open. And so they destroy the nuclear headship, and empirical evidence shows that if a family has a male figure in it, then you know that those families, the children don't go to prison. In fact, the ones that do go to prison, the statistics are so low that they don't even consider them whenever they're um, you know explaining that. So DOC, the Department of Corruptions, um, they have to, you know, about every decade or so, whenever um, uh, the guys that build the structures, they have to. Um, he said, "I was just pranking people on live stream, but your story broke my heart. That is so heartbreaking." Well, that's all right, I guess. I mean, it's not. I guess it's what we do about it. You know what I mean? Like when like I was saying about the prisons, whenever people come into, we know that we're going to have this amount of beds because this is what they do. They go out into the field and they find out how many mothers are at home with children and there's no father, or maybe there are children with their grandmothers, there's no mother or father, right? And then also on top of that, within the uh, the communities where there are broken communities, they want to find out not only how many of those homes don't have a nuclear head, they also want to know how many males are in that family, how many male children. My tattoos tell my pain. I'll explain my tattoos in just a second. But um, the people that build prisons, they can say, okay, this is how many people are in prison right now, and these are how many children in broken communities don't have a father, right? And DHS is the ones that breaks up the family because the guys that are in prison, they take their parental rights from them. And so now they know how many feet each cell is going to be and how many cells they have to make and how big the compound has to be. And they can do that every 10 years. They can say every 10 years, this is how many people are going to replace people that die in prison or discharge from prison. That's how they know. Um, and there's empirical evidence to support that because that's what they've done for probably at least 50 years. The tattoos. So on my chin it says Yahweh, and the tulips, and there's a tulip, and then it says 5 solas. So the tulips are it's how we explain the doctrines of grace to people. And then of course Yahweh, Old Testament, that's the I am. In the New Testament, like in Revelation 1:8, Jesus says, Ego eimi. He said that 24 times in John's gospel, Ego eimi, which is why the Jews wanted to kill him because he was making himself equal to God. Ego eimi means Yahweh in Greek. And so Jesus in Revelation 1:8, he calls himself God. He says, I am, comma, the Alpha and the Omega, comma, the beginning and the end, comma, he who is, he who was, he who is, comma, says the Lord, comma, the Almighty. So you break away, you take all those commas out of there, and if you go ego eimi, and then the last phrase was the Almighty. I am the Almighty. That's what Jesus calls himself. So whenever people say, Jesus never called himself God, yeah, he did. Yeah, that's why they wanted to kill him, because he was saying ego eimi. He wasn't just saying eimi, or some people say Amy. I'm not a Greek scholar, but um, that's what Yahweh. So Yahweh is the great I am, the one who just is. He just exists, and so my tattoos tell my pain. This is the 1689. The 1689. The London Confession, the London Baptist Confession of Faith is 32 articles of apologetics that we utilize to help people understand what they believe. So a lot of folks believe things, but they don't know why they believe things. So if you ask them about the Bible or whatever, um, sanctification, justification, regeneration, I mean, we can go through all these things. A lot of times they can't really explain it. And so what the 1689 does, it has 32 articles of faith. So there's a statement that's being made, kind of like when the preacher stands in the pulpit and he makes a statement about something, right? And then underneath those statements, there's addresses in the Bible to go look at. So you can see that the man made a statement, and he's making that statement based off these sections of scripture within the Bible. So that's the 1689, real helpful tool to help people um, um, just understand the 32 articles of faith that are in there. It talks about baptism. Talks a little bit about end time stuff. There's just a wealth of information in that little tool book. And of course, I got the Alpha and the Omega. I already talked about Yahweh. And there's a Bible, an open Bible, and then there's a sun above the Bible, kind of illuminating. And then on the back of my neck, I've got some more. There's like a tulip, and then there's some tulips with some doves. We got doves all over, and of course, the dove is kind of a representation, a picture representation, sort of like Jesus when he come down to the water, get baptized. Um, and then on my neck, there's a lion and a lamb, which is it's the wrath and grace. If you guys go to WG Universe, whatever your favorite app store is, and you can get it for free, but it's got a lot of there's teaching series, there's preaching series, there's Shoot, there's books for kids. There's books for adults. There's music, different genres of music. But it's all sound doctrine. It's all about sound doctrine. And so, um, wrath and grace. That's the tattoo I have on my neck back here. And um, yeah, so WG Universe. I encourage folks to go out and pull that up on their smart devices, download that app, and you got tools, man, lots of tools in there. Going over a series of Justin Peters is going over Kingdom of the Cults, and he explains how all the religiosities out there that don't have the right Jesus or don't have Jesus at all, they're all cults, and he explains why they're cults, what a cult is. And so um, WG Universe, yeah, really good tool, man. So, but I am going to get on with it. I got to get outside. I'll probably link back up later on. If you guys have any, statements or questions, you want to drop something in one of my DMs or something like that. That's what's up. If you like the content, there's more on there. I mean, you might not like it, but it always helps me if you subscribe and leave a like, uh, share it with somebody. But yeah, man, I'll get on her later on. I'm gonna try to get some work done on the old chicken farm, and I love you guys. There ain't a damn thing you can do about it.